On this quick video, we'll talk a little bit about Shipa's integration with CircleCI and how this integration can help you deliver your applications on Kubernetes a lot faster. Behind the scenes, how that works. Me as a platform operator or a platform engineer, I create frameworks using Shipa, or pools as we call it inside the application. And these pools definitions are driven by the requirements of your applications instead of your Kubernetes clusters, in a way that it makes the pool or the framework completely agnostic from the cluster that you have running, enabling you to use multiple clusters across multiple clouds or on premises, or even at the edge. But when defining these pools, you're going to define parameters such as security level that you want for your applications. You can define which teams can deploy applications using this framework, what type of resources every application deployed using this framework can use, such as CPU and memory, all the way down to what type of registries you want to allow your users to use when deploying using this framework and network policies. Once you define this framework, you can attach it to any of your existing Kubernetes clusters. In this case, we have GKE, but again, the framework is completely agnostic from your underlying cluster. And what happens from a developer perspective is nothing changes on the development workflow. They can keep using their Git or their source code repository of choice, and they can keep having that integrated into CircleCI. In a way that now, instead of your developer or your platform team to have to create your last mile deployment scripts with Terraform, custom scripts, Helm charts, and others, and your objects for your application, now they don't need to do that anymore. And instead of having CircleCI try to deliver your applications across different clusters, CircleCI now delivers your application code to the Shipa frameworks that were created by your platform engineering team. In a way that when CircleCI delivers the code to the Shipa frameworks are then responsible for creating all the required objects, performing the security scans, attaching network policies, endpoints for application, application metrics, logs, and a lot more. So your developer, they can be focused on the application code instead. At the end of the day, what we're doing with this integration, we're helping organizations accelerate the Kubernetes adoption. We're removing completely the need of your team to be creating custom scripts, Helm charts, and managing YAML files for the last mile deployment. And with that, we're fixing the last mile deployment and getting you focused on the app operation instead. We're allowing our developers to be focused on the application code delivery and updates rather than infrastructure objects. And the platform team or the DevOps team is now the focus to implementing controls, security, and guardrails. At the end, with Shipa and CircleCI together, you have an end-to-end DevOps lifecycle where you have developer, security, and ops together. So let's see what it looks like from a demo perspective. What we have in front of us is Shipa's dashboard, and Shipa can be operated from both the dashboard as well as its CLI. And here in the dashboard, you can get detailed information about your overall application framework, such as where your applications are distributed geographically in terms of cloud providers. You can see the deployments that your different teams are doing across the different frameworks or pools that you have, security information, so on and so forth. And we have now here our applications. These applications, they have been previously created and deployed already. And we can see one specific application that is called CircleCI. When you create the application on Shipa, which you can do both from the CLI, from the dashboard, as well as directly from your CircleCI pipeline, Shipa will automatically assign to this application the properties that you define at the framework or pool level. So the amount of resources, CPU, network policies, security, and more. As well as it will create an endpoint for your application. So when it's deployed, your application can be accessed directly from there. This application that I have here running called CircleCI, it's actually coming from a GitHub registry, GitHub repo that I have here. And I have my CircleCI definition file, my config.yaml file. And you can see that as the steps that we have here, we basically have a CircleCI org created by Shipa that allows that deployment directly from your CircleCI pipeline into Shipa. And here we're seeing steps such as the checkout of the code, install Shipa or the Shipa CI integration, and then run an app deployment. That's simple and easy to set up. And from a CircleCI perspective, the only things that we need when we're defining that is the application name where you want to deploy your code. So basically, in our case, we just called it CircleCI as the app name. And you can see we defined it as CircleCI. If you have Shipa installed, you have the Shipa certificate as well that basically allows CircleCI to connect to your Shipa framework account and deploy the application there. The next one is the Shipa password and the user, which basically are your credentials that you use to access and deploy your applications in Shipa. You can also, instead of using the username and password, you can use a Shipa token. So basically using your user token. And last but not least is the Shipa Server, which is basically the Shipa target that you're going to use. If you just type Shipa target list, you can get the target that you are using. So when there is a commit or when there is a change to my Git repo, CircleCI will be automatically triggered. So there's nothing different there. And based on these steps that we define here, CircleCI will now be able to connect to the Shipa framework where my application CircleCI is located and deployed. My framework in this case is actually attached to a Kubernetes cluster and it's called dev. And my dev cluster is actually a GKE cluster. So what is happening is CircleCI is deploying to the Shipa pool or the Shipa framework. Shipa is automatically creating all the objects and doing the deployment on the GKE cluster, creating all the ingress rules, controllers, security, and so on and so forth, and basically still give you an application level view after your application and your code is deployed. So you can continue operating your application directly from Shipa at an application level rather than looking at an object level. But still, if you have the need to understand how your application, what your application is actually composed of, you can still see the application's dependencies here. So you can see the code that CircleCI pushed to Shipa, and you can see all the objects that Shipa created for your application in the GKE cluster in order for it to work, such as the containers, the image versions, services, pods, ingress rules, so on and so forth. You can also perform different deployments, such as canary directly from CircleCI into Shipa, and this is all part of the Shipa org documentation that you can find. So now you can go from code to operating your application across Kubernetes clusters with CircleCI and Shipa in an easy way. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.